Sometimes when I'm thinking about us, before we got lost and we parted, back to back we would carry on and we'd do anything for what we started. But this time we could break. I'm running dry, everything's the same. We'll try tonight, this time we're not safe and sound. Not safe and sound. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. Sometimes when I'm reasoning about us, I know you got me, it's so effortless. Back to back we would carry on and we'd do anything for what we started. But this time we could break. I'm running dry, everything's the same. We'll try tonight, this time we're not safe and sound. Not safe and sound. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me?
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the FPV News. I am paused right now because YouTube just asked me to accept the terms and service before being allowed to stream. Literally, the pages didn't load. And now the window says live streaming isn't available right now. So
Oh,
I seem to be streaming, but I can't open the YouTube page that lets me actually... Hang on, give me 1 second. I went to look at the... your live streams will show up here. Oh, I know what happened. Hold on. I was looking at the analytics from the live stream clips channel. And so then when I tried to load it was the wrong channel. Sorry. I have a small technical here, and we will be back at it. I had the window open. I had it all ready to go. And then when I clicked on the little tab, it was like, no. There we are.
all right.
We are streaming. All is well. Okay. Phew. Yeah. Welcome, everybody, to the FPV News for October 4th, 2022. It's very good to be here with you folks, with you fine folks who want to find out what's going on in the world of FPV, and just to be with you, Blunty, who knows what's going on in the world of FPV. Am I right?
Yeah, at least I try to. Try to stay up on it and bring the news so we can bring the news to the people every Tuesday.
We're bringing the news. Feels like that should mean something other than just literally we're going to do the news. Happy birthday, Blockout. Good to see you here. Glad you're here. Hi, Captain Bride. Never misses a live stream. Ghost Branch, you're here too. Good to see ya. Tweak Racer has pointed out, Blunty, they've looked down at the show notes. We don't have any DJI news.
That's true. Yeah.
Shame.
Nothing exciting going on with DJI right now. So
yeah, well, that's where we're supposed to make something up. Are we going to at least say critical things about HD0?
I don't think so. Not on the list. Maybe it'll come up.
Oh,
But
okay.
it's not on the list.
I'm told that my bias is obvious, and by bias, I think they mean I have a preference for certain things that I'm clear and open about. But that's bias. I am Reviewtron 5000. I have no bias. Also, I have no interesting opinions. My reviews are worthless. Okay. Now that we got that out of the way, let's start with the PSAs, public service announcements. We got 2 of them, and the first one everybody needs to know about.
Yeah, absolutely. First up, many of you have heard, but if you haven't, that's what we're here for. So DRL is free on the Epic Game Store until October the 6th, until sometime during the 6th.
So literally 2 more days, basically.
Yeah, so if you haven't done it yet, it's probably worth signing up for Epic. You do have to download their little launcher and stuff, but you get a free copy of DRL if you don't have it. So
and you get to keep it.
Yes, for sure.
Yes.
You'll always have it. So.
Yes. So if you haven't already purchased it, even if you're not in town, I mean, you were just saying, Blunty, Epic does this every month. It's a different game. And as long as you are visiting the Epic Game Store, you just quick download it. It's in your library forever. You don't even really have to install it. Once you claim it, though, you get it forever. And if you don't have it, you should have it.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
Good sim. Lots of good racing going on there. Competitive stuff. You can get on a TV show. All kinds of stuff about the DRL sim that's worth enjoying, especially for free.
Yeah. I mean, for free, it's absolutely worth it. It's worth paying also. But even if you have another sim that you like to play, it's just some variety, interesting environments. They have great big environments, huge environments to fly in. And well worth doing. So congratulations to DRL for, I don't know how they made that arrangement, but it's pretty cool. The other PSA is a little more niche. It's about GoPro, and not just any GoPro, but a specific GoPro firmware.
Yeah, we've mentioned this a little bit in the past, but I got different questions about it, and I had a lot of people who don't know it exists. So we wanted to let people know. If you use GoPro Labs, which is a special firmware you can download for your GoPro, I don't know if 11 has a Labs yet. I did not see it on the list, but I know the 10 and up has Labs. There is an 11 on the list. So if you scroll down, there's a list of those things to install there, and basically you get a bunch of different.
Oh, go ahead.
Bunch of different features.
Didn't used to be. Sorry, I said go ahead, and then I talked anyway. Continue.
You get a bunch of different features. So you can use motion triggers for your camera. You can scan QR codes to make changes. Like if you have settings you want to save, you can have different QR codes to do different sets of settings and set things you normally couldn't. But one of the cool things that's maybe a secret feature, or a feature most people don't know about, is you can manually pick the bit rate that you use to record at. So most people know that the Hero 10, I believe, is capped at 100 megabits per second, but you could type in whatever number there you want. And we know somebody, or at least I know somebody on Facebook, who says they regularly film for a client at 200 megabits per second. And I think it totally depends on what format and stuff you're using. I know you also have to control heat and stuff, but that kind of lets you manually dial in and get that footage exactly where you want. And definitely a cool feature to have.
Yeah, the argument that was being made was that clients want high bit rate. They want at least double the expected playback bit rate to give them some flexibility to do some speed ramps and stuff. So if you're going to be playing back at 30 FPS, you want minimum 60 FPS. Maybe you want even more. And at the higher frame rate, you also need a higher bit rate, since your bit rate is divided into the number of frames. And I'm of the opinion that if you're playing back 120 FPS at 120 FPS, then even if you only have a normal 30 FPS or 60 FPS bitrate, the frames are kind of going by so fast that it doesn't matter as much. But as soon as you start slowing that down and stretching it out, if you take 120 FPS, you slow it down to 30 FPS, you would need 4 times the bitrate to get the equivalent quality of a 30 FPS stream. And so simply recording...
I speed ramps are pretty common too, at least in
Absolutely.
cinematic footage and stuff. So you definitely don't want those speed ramps to look like they're sort of down resing, you know, when you do that speed ramp.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you normally would record at 100 FPS for 2.7K or 4K, that's kind of common, then if you were to go to 120 FPS and do a 4x speed ramp, then you would need 400 FPS or 400 megabits per second, which I don't know if the camera can do that. I mean, at some point you run into the limitations of the processor and the SD card. But 100 FPS.
Most people I've heard are running like 150 megabit or 200 megabit, I think is the most I've heard. But I know 150 is stable with a good card. Mo mentions that in chat. So
yeah. So that's very exciting. In fact, the argument that was made was that the Hero 11 was like a complete non-starter because it didn't have the GoPro Labs firmware. Now it does. And because you couldn't do the 200 megabits per second, that was like a killer feature that pros really want. So this is exciting. But even if you're not a pro, even if you aren't interested in these killer features, the GoPro Labs firmware offers some pretty cool stuff. Who do I talk to, Blunty, to get a feature added? Because there's a feature I want from GoPros. And here's what it is. You ready for it?
Okay. Yes.
You crash. Your GoPro ejects. Your GoPro is lost. And what I do is I take my phone and I hold my phone up and I try and see if the phone can catch the Bluetooth. And then there's a thing you can do in the app that makes it start beeping. It's the Find My GoPro function. And then maybe you hear the beeping and you can find your GoPro. The GoPro has an IMU, so it has a G sensor. I want a feature where if you detect a shock of, let's say, more than 8 Gs or 10 Gs or whatever you decide, then it starts beeping instantly. Because it must have crashed.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I want that. GoPro Labs, give it to me.
Fair enough. Make it happen.
Yeah.
Sure. All
Somebody
the GoPro people are listening.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. Alrighty. That's our PSAs. Now we come to our first actual story of the day, and it is about Kittyhawk fly-in cars. I gotta put a G in there real quick. There we go. Kittyhawk fly-in cars. Now, Blunty, I confess, I didn't know. I'm not sure I could have told you who Kittyhawk was before this story. So the fact that they've gone bust doesn't really hit me like it would if I was a Kittyhawk fan. Who is Kittyhawk and what's happened to them?
So you might remember, I think a year, maybe more ago, we did a couple stories on these, like basically flying multi-rotors, you know, that like you want to put people into. And Kittyhawk was one of those companies who were basically trying to do air taxis. So, you know, the idea is like, hey, helicopters are expensive to run. Maybe there's a middle ground where we can basically provide, you know, taxis through the air to different points, you know, different ways of, you could think about how you would handle it, right? But basically just like, 2 to 4 person flying cars to try to build autonomous stuff for the skies. And Kittyhawk has announced that they have given up. They are winding down what they're doing. And they basically say, you know, it's just has not gone well. We're still working on the details of what's next is kind of the way they say it. But yeah, it just did not work out. And this is, for people who don't know, this is Google co-founders Larry Page's startup that he backed to do this kind of stuff.
All righty. Well, looks like this, you know, the dream of flying cars has been promised and not delivered since the 70s. And looks like today will not be the day that it gets delivered, although this website certainly is impressive. What makes us different? Let's see what makes them different, Blunty. Our air taxi will be commanded by a ground operator overseeing multiple vehicles. Our first commercial model will have a single seat, no pulling with strangers. Oh, like an air taxi. Like it's going to Uber you. It's going to land in your yard and take you somewhere and you're not going to fly it. That's interesting.
Yeah, or it'll be like trains where they go to like a central location, right? So, yeah.
It's always fun after a company goes out of business to go back and look at their website. And our air taxi will be commanded by a ground operator. No, it won't, because you went out of business. It will have. No, it won't. No, am I wrong?
Well, so that didn't go well. They decided to stop, but in basically what is I would call a counter move, Boeing has shown plans for their team up with Whisk to do exactly what Kittyhawk says is not feasible and does not work.
Oh.
They say by the end of the decade, by 2030, they will have a fleet of Whisk vehicles located in many different locations. And basically their plan is, if you scroll all the way down to like one of those fancy little pictures.
This
there
thing
you go.
here. Okay.
Yeah, open that guy a little bigger. We could take a look. So basically the idea is that we're going to have vertiports. So airports. You know what airports are, right? So we're going to have vertiports. And vertiports will be either positioned above highways, or they'll be positioned like on top of buildings, like basically in convenient places where they don't take up too much area. And the plan is such that you will be able to go to one of the big buildings in Manhattan, and you can just fly off of that building instead of having to find somewhere to like put a train or put a bus station or something. And then you'll fly to another vertiport that's located somewhere else conveniently. And so that's their sort of vision for this. And they've also, along with this, released a 64-page plan, which goes through their entire plan for what they're calling uncrewed urban air mobility. So their plan is to start crewed and start having you have piloted flights where it's basically like an Uber through the skies, and then transition into uncrewed, remotely managed, centrally located, uncrewed taxi service.
I'm sure this is a stupid question, and I'm stupid for asking it, but I've never been afraid of looking stupid. Why is no one doing this already with helicopters?
They're expensive as shit. And they think that this is not going to be near as expensive. That's from my understanding. That's the idea here. Is that helicopters are extremely expensive to operate, and they also don't have as good of a failsafe. Somebody can maybe help me with that, but I think like Jesus Bolt stops you from like running like a common like air taxi. Like Uber costs you $600 to fly, across the city in a helicopter for a reason. And I think a lot of that is insurance.
Wait, hold on, back up. Uber has helicopters in some cities.
Yeah, they do it for festivals and stuff. Yeah,
that's
you can like.
Cool.
Yeah, you like land at the airport and then you can get in an Uber helicopter to your festival, like sort of thing. They do that sort of thing.
That's kind of cool. You're saying that helicopters, for the same reason basically that we don't fly collective pitch helis, although some of us do, but RC enthusiasts fly multi-rotors because they're mechanically simpler, they're easier to maintain, and they have electrical failure modes, but maybe fewer mechanical failure modes. So the argument is that you take an air taxi with like 17 jillion motors, and then, small props, and then it's cheaper to build and cheaper to fly.
And cheaper to maintain, which it's not Sam points out, helicopter regulations around maintenance are insane. I think it's just something about helicopters, and maybe people who know more about it can tell you, but they're just extremely expensive to run per hour and per day.
Okay.
And I think a lot of that comes around regulation. So hopefully this will come in with not that much around it, right?
Because they haven't had any regulations yet. Because all of the regulations that were quote unquote written in blood, as they say, for all these other things, there's no blood on these yet, and so there will be fewer regulations, and then you can be the first one to jump in and save yourself 10 minutes getting home. Sounds good. Well, good luck, Boeing. It's always fun because people are like, we're going to do package delivery by drone. No, we're not. It doesn't work. And then just as they're making that announcement, someone else is like, wait, we've just started doing package delivery. And that's kind of what's going on here. Maybe Boeing can pull it off.
It feels like we're in like that early tech era sort of thing again, but for physical goods where people are just going to burn a lot of money for the next, have been and will be burning money for the next however many years on things that might not ever work and make no sense. And then out of that, we're going to see like some of these things that actually make sense pop up and then
That's
actually
true.
be usable.
I mean, if you think back to the .com boom, there was a philosophy of give every potential Silicon Valley startup gobloads of money to spend on whatever they want. And so many of them don't exist anymore and never were viable. But some of them exist and turned out to be the Googles of the world and so forth. So maybe that's what we see here. I don't know.
Yeah. They do have competition. So there are other companies they mentioned in the article, Archer, Joby, and there's a couple others that are all working to do the same thing, get FAA certification and do similar flights and get testing and stuff done. So we'll see how it goes, and we'll be following along with it and watching it as it happens.
All right. Alrighty, next up, we've got another story. This one is about ion-propelled drones.
Yeah.
I think we did a story about ion-propelled drones before, and part of the problem is that they had to be ultra lightweight because ion thrusters are they're good for spaceships, where like you need a small amount of thrust for a long time off not much power. But for drones, they had to be extraordinarily light because ion thrusters don't make a lot of thrust. Has that changed?
Well, some companies think it has, and that's sort of why we're bringing this up, because it sort of popped up in the FPV/drone zeitgeist again. And this company, Undefined Technologies, has been pushing their videos and information about the Silent Ventus, which is essentially they're saying it's like below 75 dB, and it can fly. And it says it's a 4.5-minute flight with, it doesn't have any information about power efficiency and actual, what the actual noise level was during the flight or any charting or anything. It's very vague, right? Because that's how this kind of thing goes. But it's interesting because this, plus their website and some other information, we have another video by one of our favorite people in FPV, at least one of my favorite people in FPV.
It's Bruce XJet. If anybody out there is going to bust something like this, it's him. Do we want to play his audio, or do you want to? How do we want to do this?
I can basically summarize what he said. I definitely would like people to go watch that if they haven't. To check out just his input on it and stuff. But basically, what he points out is there's a lot of pieces that don't really make any sense. The image we see in front of us doesn't look like it has anything special in the middle. Mm-hmm. But then when you go look at all their flight testing, like the video we just saw, it seems to be, and then in all their other videos, they seem to have an EDF fan in the center.
Oh, well, that's a little different than saying you're flying based on ion propulsion.
Yes, correct. And what's more, he points out that, in this video, you could see that there's a big center EDF, and you can hear it in the video, where they're it's a giant whirring EDF. And he points out that in the video we just watched, they're shaking, and there wouldn't be shaking from ion propulsion, right? You're getting shaking because they're moving a motor inside, and it's spinning.
So, you're getting 90% of your thrust from the EDF and 10% from the ion propulsion or whatever.
Some steering or something.
Right.
You can call it ion-propelled is what it seems to be.
Oh,
the other thing he points out is in the video we just watched, the grass doesn't move around the whole drone. It just moves around the very center where the EDF is.
Oh, Bruce!
Which makes sense because it's probably just an EDF blowing.
Get one over on this guy. You cannot get one over on this guy. He's going to here. Hang on.
You'd expect if this was creating a ionic wind capable of lifting the craft, then all this grass around here would be squashed down as the craft took off. Let's just see what happens to that grass when the craft...
I fucking love his attitude. Let's just see what happens. We know what's going to happen, Bruce. I know what... you're leading me down the primrose path. He's so sort of politely dismissive.
Grass around here would be squashed down as the craft took off. Let's just see what happens to that grass when the craft lifts off. Waiting for it. That grass didn't move. There's no ionic wind blowing that grass down. There's that same craft. It's still got that EDF in the middle.
It's fantastic.
So basically, the gist of it is you can fly ion only. You can't carry basically anything with it. And he points out the Wikipedia article for these says you can carry 1 gram per watt with traditional ion technology. It's not a feasible technology. It doesn't make sense for what we're doing.
So what's these guys' angle? What are they trying to do?
They claim on their website they've got a new way to do ion propulsion that increases 150% efficiency. And it seems like that way is shove an EDF in the center.
If it's 150%, no. That's dumb.
It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't make sense. Like he points out, if you're carrying 1,000 grams, you need 1,000 watts to do that. And that's without carrying the drone itself and all the mechanisms to the drone.
I love how they've named their video, Ion Propulsion Drone Proves Its Commercial Viability. That's you wrote that, as if this is some third party story.
It has a very pyramid investment vibe to me.
Oh, there you go. I see. They're trying to scam investors out of money. It's basically a Kickstarter scam.
That's what I would think.
Got it.
But I don't know for sure.
Any statements made on the FPV news
there-
are statements of opinion and not statements of fact for the purposes of libel law.
There you go. Speaking of that, before we go into the next story, we're going to talk about the Redcat 10Q quarterly report. And we want to let you know that we are not investors. We do not provide investment advice, and we don't know anything about what we're talking about.
No.
And we're just sharing information we're reading off the screen.
But we did one thing that you didn't do, and that is that, I say we, I mean you. Blunty actually listened to the quarterly report, which, how long did that take you?
I read it, but it took me a while. I don't know.
Yeah. You actually like that kind of stuff. You dig regulation, you dig corporate financial stuff. I don't think a lot of people would peg you as somebody who's super into quarterly statements, but
I agree. But I am. Turns out I am. And I pulled it into an Imager link, so we don't have to dig through that giant 10Q, but we did link the 10Q if you are interested in checking that 10Q out. So we've got this Imager link. In the first bit here, we can see we've got a comparison between the 3 months that ended in July 31st, 2022 and July 31st, 2021. And interestingly, in this, we get some information about the revenue and stuff. But one thing I think is interesting is they say approximately 37,000 or 371,000 of the increase to higher revenues for Fat Shark is attributed to higher revenues for Fat Shark, which launched in its newest release period, the Dominator, in the first quarter. So they're saying that $371,000 came from the Dominator launch in revenue.
Mm-hmm. That's not a big number.
I would say that it's not a big number. I would agree.
371,000, and that's revenue. Higher revenues,
so
which
that's
launches
revenue.
new
So like, it's not like that's like them burning cash on.
They're not specifically. They're not specifically saying the Dominator did that. They're saying the revenue increase, what came from Fat Shark, which launched the Dominator in that quarter.
Yeah.
Technically, I mean, we could infer that a lot of that money is from the Dominator, but $371,000 divided by the cost of a Dominator, how many headsets does that roughly equal to, Blunty? Have you done the math?
Well, it's like $750 or something, because I think you have to drop it down from the actual cost because you're talking about what they're charging the retailer, right?
Oh, so we don't know what their margin is. What if we guessed there was a 25% margin?
Yeah, that's
so that would be 600. 600. Sorry, hang on. 600 times 0.75 would be 450. What we would guess is their cost to the retailer. So then 371,000 divided by 450. That is 824 sets of goggles.
Yeah, so less than 1,000 shipped to retailers, right? That would be like the idea there. But remember, that's only Dominators. That's not Avatars.
What does that mean?
Well, we don't know how many, because Walksnail sells the Avatar. Fat Shark sells the Dominator, right? But they're both the same system.
Presumably, Fat Shark gets a cut when Walksnail sells an Avatar.
Yeah, so there may be different.
And
the
that
numbers
cut,
may work out differently because we don't know.
So if Fat Shark sold 100% of the goggles, and if all of our other guesses and assumptions are right, it's a 7. The takeaway is it's not like 5,000 goggles.
I don't think it's anywhere near that. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there you go. I have heard from people who I will not even suggest who they are because they won't like it if I do that. I have heard that that the Walksnails are not selling fantastically. So that jibes with what I've heard.
Yeah.
Well, slow start, build up, maybe cross the finish line hard. What else we got?
And to be fair, we should just remember that was by July 31st. So we don't know what's sold after that. Of course, we're not talking to current revenue, but we're talking reported revenue. So
okay. Anything else interesting in here?
The other couple things, not in this little segment, but I've got some more things I pulled out here. This was their requirement to start listing their acquisitions. So they went back and talked about the acquisitions they made and what they paid. So basically, that next picture there shows the Teal acquisition numbers. We can see basically they paid $10 million for Teal in shares. And then they got 1.3 million in assets and 5.6 million in debts, or 4.2 million in debts.
I guess we see why Teal sold, perhaps.
Yes. So they ended up, they basically had 14.2 million in goodwill. So they were really banking on Teal being worth the investment because they thought the technology was worth it. And then also,
I think a lot of their acquisitions may point to a strategy where the sum is worth more, the whole is worth more than the sum of its parts. That Teal drones by itself may have trouble competing with the DJIs and the Skydios of the world, or whoever they see as their competitors. But that when you build a portfolio of Skypersonic for remote access, Teal for access to the drone technology, simulator, freaking liftoff for the simulator training, that can be packaged and then to something that is more commercially viable. This could be a win-win.
Yeah. So they also list Fat Shark. So we can see that Fat Shark they paid 8.3 million for, in 6 million in shares and a little bit of cash and some promissory notes. And a lot of that was goodwill as well. $6 million in goodwill there as well for Fat Shark. If you scroll down a little onto that one, and then that'll be the one after that. So that's the Fat Shark one. So $6 million in goodwill. Total purchase was 8.3. And then Skypersonic, which they also they got with some debt. So they paid 2.7 for Skypersonic. And Skypersonic was 2.8 million in goodwill as well. So basically, they bought a bunch of assets that they thought were worthwhile, but really they absorbed a ton of goodwill in these. If you add up between these, they spent however much money, and they have $23 million in goodwill from those investments that they were trying to. It's a good example of how these companies operate. They're not interested in buying something that's already profitable. They're interested in buying a bunch of entities that they can throw together, like you said, and build something that's like a central thing that puts them all together.
That feels very consistent with the perception that I have of Jeff Thompson, the founder of Redcat, in that he feels very much like the kind of, if you asked me, does Jeff Thompson want to take over an existing established business and make it 3% more efficient? Or does Jeff Thompson want to take a business that is on its last legs and turn it around and make it 5,000% more efficient 2% of the time, or 98% of the time run it into the ground and then move on to the next thing? I'd be like, the second one, that's him. So, we'll see how that goes. No numbers in there about Rotor Riot, though, huh? The Rotor Riot acquisition? That was not in this time frame, was it?
It might have been. I might have missed it. But here, I can double check real quick because I know where it is. Mm-hmm. No, it was not in this time frame.
Yeah, okay. Alrighty. Well, interesting stuff about Redcat.
Yeah, so we'll see how it goes. Their stock has been all over the place. I know that for sure. So I'm
how's their stock doing?
I'm not sure right now, but it's one of the most volatile. I mean, I don't follow any of these smaller stocks, but it seems like it is all over the place. If you hit that 6-month button,
yeah. Oh, September 2022, October 2022. It was up to. Oh, no, sorry. That's only $3.
Yeah, but it lost quite a bit of that value. So
yeah, all the way down to $1.56. Oh, I see. That's not zero. Don't mess with the y-axis, folks. Don't mess with the y-axis. Nobody needs that. Yeah,
another great example of always check your y-axis.
Yeah. Yeah, there's that. Is that before the? I think
that's before the acquisition, maybe. So I feel like they acquired it.
Yeah, it was like 2008. The $7 was, I think, the high of when it was actually Redcat and not the previous company that they did the reverse merger with. So there you go. Well, hopefully it'll come back up. Doesn't matter to me. I don't hold any Redcat stock.
Yeah, we shall see.
All right. Let's see. Next story we got. Oh shoot. I screwed up the lower third. Oh well.
I'll be all right.
The clips channel is going to have to account for that. We've got the cinematic of the week. We got another great cinematic, and this one is a fly-through of Wrigley Field. Anything you want to do to set this up?
Not particularly, just another cool fly-through. Figure we'd check out. Yeah, that seems to have done pretty well. So you can play the audio on this one,
okay,
if you want.
And we're going to play just a little bit of it. It's 4 minutes long. There's a link in the video description. We always like to send the traffic to the original channel if you want to watch the whole thing, but we'll give you just a little taste of it and see how we go. Do we know who the pilot is?
Sky Candy Studios is where they give thanks to.
I said I wasn't going to show the whole thing. I'm so engrossed in it, I'm about to just show the whole thing. All right.
Yeah. Well, we're going to 4 minutes of it. So.
Yeah. I love these oneers. Is it a full oneer, or are there any hidden cuts?
I think that one we just saw was the hidden cut where it sweeps over the top, or at least it's a chance for a cut.
Okay.
But I don't know if it did cut there or not. But
yeah,
it's pretty good.
I'm bad for life. I'm pretty sure that in a situation like this, the people are not paid actors, but that what they do is they have the people like sign a waiver. These are people who are just at the event, and then as part of their ticket or whatever, they have them sign a waiver of some kind, which technically makes them part of the shoot. Yeah,
I'm not even sure. Do you have to have everybody sign a waiver for a close? If you actually get the waiver from the FAA for flying over people?
I don't know.
How it works.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I've been at events where, as part of like going to the event, like on the back of your ticket or something, it said you agree to be a part of this. They're going to do some kind of a shoot, and they say you agree that we can use your likeness. Or whatever. And so that they don't have to get a waiver from every single person individually. I can't imagine that they paid all of these people like some kind of a day rate.
No chance.
Yeah, they just happen to be there.
Yeah.
But I also don't know if it's a closed set. Do you have to actually have everybody like on staff, or just the fact that it's a closed set? We'll have to ask you next time you see Dave Messina, ask him.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do a follow-up. He'd know. I don't know. Pretty soon you'll know, because you're the FPV Freedom Coalition guy.
Eric Toft in the chat says part 107 says you have to get proper notification, so like a sign behind a fenced area or something like that. So that would make sense if they just had like somebody running through going drone. I don't know. I'm sure there's some like way you can legally cover your butt there. So. Yeah,
interesting. Well, maybe we'll do a follow-up, because I am curious. Maybe we could, maybe it's not for the news, but maybe I could talk to somebody like that who does this kind of shot and say, how do you do it?
So,
June Loco,
go ahead.
June Loco, there's no way that this was illegal. There's no way that the Chicago Cubs hired a company that is going to be sketchy and do this illegally. I just don't find that plausible. I know for a fact that there are legal ways to do shots like this. I assume it was all legal.
That's sort of what I would say too, that there are ways to do this that are legal, and so we would assume that's the case. And if not, the FAA will call them and ask their pilots how they handled everything, and like that's a common thing that they do. So one thing I was going to mention is that one thing they really like is if somehow, and in this content it's kind of hard because it's meant as a oneer, right? It's meant as a piece of content like this, but they ask a lot of times that you try to show how you achieved a lot of this stuff. So like if you pass the sign that says everybody, there's a drone in the area, right? Or if you show ahead of time like that you're clearing people out, or that like you kind of give some indication of how things were done and that it was followed like compliantly, so that when people watch it they have an idea of how it was done, and the FAA doesn't get a bunch of calls, which I think is the thing they really don't like. Yeah. Well, maybe we could get a hold of, I'll tell you what, I'll put it out there. I'm sure they have like an email address or something, but I'm lazy. And I like to just shout on live streams and try to see if things happen. But if what's the company's name again? Shoot, I lost it. It's right in that video at the bottom.
Who was it?
Sky Candy Studios.
Sky Candy Studios. If you want to do like a little interview about how you did this, maybe a little behind the scenes discussion. I don't know to what degree you're allowed to do that, since the Chicago Cubs probably own the footage, but I'm sure people would like to know about how this kind of thing is done. I'd be interested to interview you. So somebody get a hold of me.
All right. He does have some other one takes with people in them that he's flying over. So
nice.
Yeah.
If I do it with Sky Candy Studios, then Beverly Hills Aerials is going to be annoyed that I did. I'd be like, what about us? Don't you like us? So I should probably interview multiple people about it and make a video. All right, good.
All right.
Next up, we have a new long-range record.
Yeah, more traditional FPV video. We've got a 1S long-range record, and they've sent us a few of these, but they finally got out, farther and farther and farther. So we finally figured we'd give you an update and let you see where this has made it to. So this is a Nano long-range 1S record. So just you got to be flying 1S, and they're using the Nanohawk LR, and yeah, they got to 7.13 kilometers out and then all the way back on the one pack.
That's a long way.
It's a long way for a 1S LR, that's for sure.
What pack are they using? What battery are they using?
I think it looks like two lithium ions, but maybe three
parallel.
Actually.
18650s, do you think?
Let's see, I think it's on the bottom.
Do we have a milliamp hour counter?
18650s.
Yeah,
Sony VTC6.
Hold on, my screen is... Go away. I don't know why this bottom thing won't go away. Sony VTC6, and we can watch the milliamp hour counter there, down in the lower right. I don't think we should sit here for the whole video, but let's speed up to the end. What does the video look like that far out? Let's see.
It looks like it might actually just be the one battery. It's just really
We're
pushing
at 1400 milliamp hours. That is well within the range of one 18650. 3.2, 3.3 video sketching. I'm going to guess it does have GPS. How'd they get a GPS on a Nanohawk? I guess it's a Nanohawk long range. Presumably it has return to home.
It's a DIY GPS module. So, the Flywood GM8 V2 hardware, it's based on that, and that's normally 7 grams. And they made a custom DIY GPS that's only 1.65 grams.
Jeez. 16 sats is pretty gosh dang good. I don't get 16 sats on my 5-inch rigs. Somebody explain to me how you got 16 sats, please. Presumably the RX Link is Crossfire Bee's knees. I don't know that for sure, but presumably that's what they're using.
It's FlySky FTR 16S 2.4 gigahertz.
Shut up. FlySky?
Yeah, it's a FlySky long range. At 100 milliwatts.
Oh, it's the LoRa FlySky tech. Apparently someone is using that. And we want to see the max. Here we go. 7 kilometers. It's still going up. We're going out. Here's right about where we turn around. Videos. What video transmitter? What's the transmit power on their VTX?
It doesn't say transmit power, but it says it's a Tramp Nano.
Here's where I'm glad I've got GPS, right?
Right.
Tramp Nano, okay.
Power's on the bottom left there, so if it's right, it's 100, right?
That is extraordinary that we're going 7 kilometers on 100 milliwatts. It just goes to show that, I don't know what it goes to show, Blunty. 100 milliwatts, 7 kilometers. How do you do that?
Well,
okay,
barely. You get snow like this, I think.
Yeah. I guess it's being up in the sky makes a big difference.
Definitely, yeah. Less reflections,
Yeah. And we come back
cool
at
stuff.
The other thing is we come back at 2.5 volts because it's an 18650. Oh, we're hiding the landing location. Okay. 2800 milliamp hours. That's an honest 3000 milliamp hour cell right there. And we're coming home. Amazing. Pretty impressive.
Cool stuff.
Anybody who thinks they need higher output power to go further should just look at this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Alrighty. Well, last up, we've got It's Barely News, a collection of items that are not really, just barely newsworthy, and that we're just going to tell you about and go, and react to, and then we'll just move right on. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and the first one up, if you click the second link there, the video, we'll just get right into it, because it is just barely news. Mm-hmm. Just the second link there. Mm-hmm. So there is a team who has broken 4 Guinness World Records at once for drones light shows. And they have got 5,200 drones, or just under 5,200 drones, flying at once. And they broke the record for the largest number of drones flying simultaneously. The largest white image The largest light image comprised...
Shut up! They're just making a flying screen.
A flying screen, exactly. The longest animation show performed, they did a 26-minute animation show, and the largest number, 88 varied consecutive formations by a single fleet. They did them all for Guinness World Records and broke 4 records at once.
I can't believe that now what we've got is we've got so many drones in the air that we just use each drone as a pixel. And then we just make a screen.
That's where we're at. That's pretty cool.
That's amazing. Oh my God. Oh my God. That's so cool. You know, screw flying cars. I'm just glad we have drone light shows.
Absolutely. Right? Very
All
cool.
right. All right. Well, there's a link to that whole video down in the video description if you want to check it out. Next up.
Next up, we wanted to tell you about an aerial drone competition. This is called Blackout, and it's basically a student drone competition where you can compete to program drones with AI and then push these little balls around the court and fly through these hoops in a sort of like a competition. That's what the Blackout is referring to. And yeah, you basically set it and forget it, and they do like little 60-second runs, and all the drones can compete against each other, but it's with pre-programmed AI algorithm stuff. So a way for students to compete, and I think they offer some scholarships through this program. So pretty cool.
Yes, that's pretty cool. Next up, food delivery by drone. What could go wrong? Well,
thousands of people could lose power. That's the story that we're showing you today. When a Wing food delivery drone has crashed on power lines in Australia. And so, unfortunately, 2,000 customers lost power for about 45 minutes, and another 300 were out for about 3 hours while they got the grid going back as expected. The drone was toasted basically on impact or just after and cooked itself off the lines. They did report...
The meal was still hot inside the drone's delivery box. Yeah, I'll bet it was.
Yeah, I would guess it might have been overcooked, a little overdone.
We don't have any video of the actual incident, do we? I'm looking through this story. It's just stock photography.
No incident video. Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, okay. Well, I'm sure there's going to be more of that going on. So,
yeah.
Meanwhile, the person is there like, where's my freaking delivery? I ordered some freaking tacos.
And why don't I have power?
Well, the power's out, but at least tacos are coming.
Yeah. Man, I kind of want power to make food.
Okay. So now we're going to, next up, we're going to solve the problem with bees, and we're going to solve them with drones.
Yeah, this is a little weird to me. I'm not sure I totally think this is going to work. This doesn't seem like the most efficient way to do this at all to me. But they want to use drones like bees, and they think that they can basically use the propellers to help spread pollen between flowers. That's the idea, like the drafts from the drones, because you're not allowed to use bees indoors, and there's like all these issues and stuff. So they want to use drones instead. To me, if you're going to put drones up, there's plenty of other things you could do to distribute pollen.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Blunty. You know a few things about growing some plants. I don't know how many plants you know about growing. There are plants that are wind pollinated, like corn, for example. Corn is wind pollinated. You have to, it blows the pollen from one to the other. So I could imagine that a drone blowing the pollen would help in a case of a plant like that. But aren't there other plants that essentially require sort of manual pollination? Something has to, like a bee?
To get a proper success rate, because I think like the location of the stamen or whatever, where you get the pollen to, is more difficult with some species and stuff. So,
well, Jake H asks, does Blunty grow his own weed?
Not anymore.
Not anymore. You used to be a professional weed blower.
Yes.
Ran a grow.
Yeah.
Not anymore that anyone knows of.
No, cannabis doesn't have that problem. He can sneeze in a general direction and pollinate half a room. So
cannabis is pretty slutty. That's what you're saying.
It's the worst. It's the worst. Yeah.
Why is it the worst?
You could think because you don't want seeds are bad. We don't like seeds.
Oh, you don't want pollination.
Correct.
Right. Yeah. You want sterile
part
plants.
of the goal is that's why we like clone, and we only have females, and you have to cull males if you do seeds, and it's a whole thing.
Oh man, interesting. Oh, it's a regulatory legal thing if you have seeds.
Yes, you also have to like categorize them all, and they have to be licensed, and you have to pay for planting them, and like all the whole thing. Yeah.
So how do you prevent the pollination from happening?
You don't. It's all sham. Like most of the industry, it's all fake.
Okay, you weren't supposed to say that part out loud.
Hey, life happens.
All right. Life. As Jeff Goldblum says, life finds a way. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I grew tomatoes. Tomatoes, not the euphemistic tomatoes that's actually marijuana, but I grew tomatoes, and cherry tomatoes are like that. So if you have like some beautiful Roma tomatoes, some big beefsteak tomatoes, and some cherry tomatoes, they'll all cross-pollinate, and next year all of them will be cherry tomatoes. Like the cherry tomatoes are so slutty and dominant, and it's like it's the worst because cherry tomatoes are fine, but that's not all I want.
Yeah, we had this problem in cannabis where they hermaphrodite. So like if you get too much stress, they'll just produce their own pollen, even if they're a female. So if you're not growing well, or you have issues, or like you have some outbreak in a corner, or there's just a stunted plant and you don't pull it on the right time overnight, it just like blows pollen over half your room, and then it's not good. Good times.
That's really fascinating. That's really fascinating. You see the kind of things you learn on the FPV news.
Very true.
All right. Well, we're going to use drones to pollinate things now. Sure. Let's just solve all of our problems with nature by adding more technology to it. That's the answer, isn't it?
Yes.
That's the answer.
That's the way.
Let's not protect the bees, or I don't know, make 5% less money this year. Let's just add, the drones are a sham too. This is just another company that has some idea that they're trying to get investment or get a grant. It's all a lie. The only thing I believe in. What?
That's also probably very true. They're probably trying to get some kind of grant and investment. Yeah.
The only thing I believe in is that light show. That's the only place in my life where I feel that technology is actually, I want to add more technology to it. Good.
It does what it says it'll do. Like you get a drone light show and they go up there and they make cool things in the sky and it works,
Yep.
So.
Yep. All right, good. We got one more. It's barely news. What do we got, Blunty?
Yeah, we've got a story from ABC. Oh man, I messed up that. Okay. So Hamilton County sheriffs in Cincinnati have decided to can their helicopters. We talked about helicopter costs earlier. They are claiming helicopters cost them $3 million a year to operate, and they've got 2. So they're selling them, and they are instead buying a fleet of drones, and they're going to use drones for the things they were using helicopters for in most cases. So they're going to use them for search and rescue and location and reconnaissance and like all kinds of different things that they were spending money on helicopters to do.
This is interesting, and I definitely agree that there's lots of applications where where a drone makes more sense than a helicopter. For example, in search and rescue, you could relatively easily get someone out there with a ground vehicle, then put a drone in the air and fly a 10-kilometer grid. And it maybe it would be a little bit faster with a helicopter, but maybe you could put 10 drones in the air at the same time and search faster. But how are you going to chase somebody who's doing a car chase with a drone? The drones, they don't have the speed and they don't have the range. And I feel like if we had really done this, we wouldn't have all these amazing car chase videos. And I just think that's a loss for America.
They actually quote the first arrest they made with the drone. They could not find a suspect that they lost after a chase, and they sent a drone up 6 stories and found the suspect on a rooftop. So they talk about like how in a lot of cases, maybe, I don't know, it might just be, there might be a lot of cases where they can find people that you might not expect. So it'll be interesting to see what they do and how they handle it and what happens. But they're interested in saving a bunch of money and hopefully achieving a lot of what they were before.
Nice. Well, yeah, good. Maybe just fewer car chases. Maybe car chases in general aren't a good idea. I don't know. Okay, well, that's going to do it for the news today. That's all the news we've got, and all we have to do is read the super chats. We've got a couple super chats to read. Just one. Actually, just one super chat.
All right.
We also didn't plug. We didn't do our plugs, Blunty. We should have done our plugs in the middle, but now that we're at the end, people are just going to leave. But we're going to do it anyway.
Fair enough.
All right.
And the first up.
Which is going to be the first?
ItsBlunty.com. No, FPVknowitall.com. Your website, where you can check out the ultimate FPV shopping list, and you could find anything you're looking for in the FPV hobby. If you're new or you've been in it for a while, you got links to curated choices for different categories of things you'd like to purchase.
Yeah. So go check those out. See what kind of products I recommend. You've also got ItsBlunty.com, which is Blunty's website. One of the main things you can do there is sign up for a one-on-one call with him. Would you like to talk to somebody who's an expert who will help you solve your problems with your drone, probably? Or I guess anything. You want to talk fishing? You want to talk HVAC repair? You want to talk cannabis? I mean, I assume you just, I assume you're not too worried about it.
I'll say I'd rather not. I'm not worried about it, but I'm also not interested in charging people for something I'm not actively doing.
Oh, interesting.
So I feel bad. I'm not I wouldn't take a cannabis consulting call because I don't feel like I'm brushed up enough on current knowledge to give somebody proper cannabis consulting for the fee.
Well, that's very ethical. That's very ethical of you. But if somebody wants to talk about Russian drone fishing simulator for an hour and they want to spend $50, you're down.
Yeah. If they really wanted to talk about cannabis, but weren't expecting to get like a real consulting,
Gotcha.
There's plenty of stuff I can talk about.
Also, your cannabis consulting rate is probably higher than $50 an hour, I would guess.
Yeah,
if they really wanted consulting.
I haven't used a pH pen in 2.5 years. I don't feel good about telling people how to mix nutrients and stuff. I don't know. Yeah.
I didn't really understand that sentence, but I get the gist.
Okay.
It's Blunty.com, or you can also join Blunty's Patreon there if you feel like giving him a little bit of money every month. And lastly, searchfpv.com is a multi-store, and more stores are being added constantly. We got stores in Asia, North America, USA, and Canada. USA and North America, not the same thing. A lot of people don't know that, mostly Americans.
That's true.
It'll search all these stores that you select. I'm going to, of course, select just the USA stores. I'm not sure why Banggood is a USA store. That's probably a bug. We'll have to get Eric on that. And you can search for products. Or whatever product you want, it'll show you the products. Check that out. Yeah, those are our plugs, I believe. Oh, one more plug, Blunty. Joshua Bardwell live stream clips channel. If you don't get to watch all of our live streams, check out the live stream clips channel where Blunty makes highlights. I love it. Alrighty. Anything else we need to plug?
I think that'll do it. I think that's going to make it for the show. Don't forget, though, if we missed something or you're mad because I didn't rant or whatever, you've got to send stuff for me to be angry about to news@fpvknowitall.com so that I can talk about it.
Because everybody's in the chat going, what, no rant this week? Listen, Blunty he's at home going woosah and meditating to try to keep himself calm. And you need to send stuff to news@fpvknowitall.com that you think he should rant about. And if you succeed at triggering him, then we'll have a rant that week. But
that's exactly right.
It's
I'm not
going
to force it. I'm not going to force it, okay?
No.
So,
no. Yeah. Okay. We got a super chat real quick. With just one super chat. It's from Bib FPV. Thank you for €5, Bib FPV. Do Caddx and DJI interfere if set to different channels? Also, seeds are the worst surprise to find. Okay, he knows. If they're on different channels, they will not particularly interfere any more or less than DJI and DJI. The one catch is that the walk snail goggles transmit all the time when they're powered up, even if your quad is powered down, and they transmit at whatever the last output power was. So if you set them at 1 watt, then unplug your quad, they're still blasting 1 watt. At which point, if you walk over with your goggles powered up and you stand next to your friend, you'll blast them because it's too powerful. So unplug your walk snail goggles when you're not using them is the takeaway, and treat them as an active transmitter. But other than that, there's no particular interference as long as they're on different channels. That is going to do it. We're going to wrap up. Thank you guys for coming. Thanks, Blunty.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. See you next week.